as well as, I'm sure you'll remember, the fabulous Bob Mccall mural that was in the exit of the attraction. It was an epic mural. I love this picture of him painting it, which gives you a real sense of how massive it was and how long that must have taken. We all know, of course you know that it was called The Prologue and the Promise. It's one of my favorite pieces of art, so much so that it was part of my Halloween costume a few years ago. I was dressed as Horizons. But no, Bob Mccall was a world-famous space artist of the time. He did stuff, a ton of stuff for NASA. He did the giant lobby mural at the Air and Space Museum. He did stuff for 2001: Space Odyssey. So we hired him to be kind of our future expert paint guy. And what I love is that this is just a couple of the alternate murals that he did. There's several of them, and we had to cut them out. There's a ton more. He did concepts for every scene in the attraction. So I'm going to be doing the rest of my presentation in the alley out back afterwards if you want to see the rest of these. Sorry.
And so here's a really interesting piece of art. It's called EPCOT Future World Center. It's when the ideas for Future World and World Showcase were completely separate. Future World Center functions still much with the same stories of Future World today, but then the World Showcase was way over towards the Magic Kingdom, about where the Transportation and Ticket Center is today. And so when you look at Walt Disney World Showcase, there are two semicircles where each nation had equal footage along a promenade. Sound familiar? But based on how much they wanted to participate, they could have as large a piece of pie as they wanted. This also brings up the story that Marty Sklar told me only just a few years ago. I'd never heard it on the project before, but you'll see that row of a court of flags in the middle. Later, you also saw it in what became the Communicore designs. We had ideas for courts of flags at the front of the park, in Showcase Plaza, in front of the American Adventure. But Marty explained very much in the 11th hour, just before Epcot opened, they made a decision that, or really an understanding that understandably, flags are nationalistic and they can be political. World Showcase was to be about culture and about people. So we chose not to put a court of flags into the Epcot Center Park, but one sort of slipped in on the side. If you look at this Hampton Court facade for the United Kingdom Pavilion that was the toy soldier, there's beautiful art glass throughout, but on the second floor here, you'll see the shields of the patron saints of the United Kingdom, St. Andrew, St. Patrick, and St. George. And if you overlay them on top of each other, they form the Union Jack flag. And so this one slipped into the plan.
Here you see Disney artist Sam Mckim. Sam painted a lot of the paintings that you see inside of the American Adventure show. And so one of the paintings that he did was called Washington's Victory Parade. And recently, for their 50th anniversary book, Stephen Vanini, Kevin Kern, Tim O'Day requested this piece of art to appear in the book.
On sale now in the shop.
Selling like hotcakes there. And so, while it's a beautiful piece of art, it is 6 feet wide by 3 feet tall, and even though it only needed to be about yay big in the book, when we removed it from the Imagineering vault, we wanted to make sure we did an amazing job photographing it to museum quality standards, simply so we wouldn't have to do this again for another few decades. So here I am photographing the piece of art, managed to capture this large piece of art at 450 pixels per inch. Lindsay, can you zoom in on a detail from the old scan of the image? Great. Now, can you enhance this to the new scan? CSI moment. All right. So here we're now able to identify numerous historical figures in the painting that were previously not identifiable. So here we can see General George Washington, Imagineer John Hench, Epcot creative executive Marty Sklar. In the background, you can see the show writer and show producer of American Adventure, Randy Bright. And in the foreground is child actor, co-star of Clark Gable and John Wayne, the artist who painted this piece. That's Sam Mckim.
Well, speaking of actors and acting, that brings us to what originally started as an Epcot Pavilion, quickly evolved into what we now know today as Disney Hollywood Studios, as seen in this Cullen Campbell painting, really representing the golden age of Hollywood. And of course, central to that painting was the Chinese Theater, and of course was home to the great movie ride for many years.
I just wanted to show these because I think they're so cute and they tickle me. These are all animation function sketches made to show the movement that each of the the audio animatronic figures had. And I think the best would be my favorite, everyone's favorite Disney character, the Xenomorph. The alien. The alien Xenomorph, what's his name?
Never knew.
And then these are color continuity storyboards that Frank Armitage painted to show how the colors and scenes would change throughout the attraction. And you'll see here that originally we had a tornado, a twister at the opening of the Oz scene that would take you into Munchkin Land. That effect didn't end up happening, but there's kind of a poetic story related to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway that you have, right, Mike?
Yeah, so today you can head over to Hollywood Studios and see a twister inside of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. But one thing you can't see are the dedications that the Imagineers working on the project left inside of the twister mechanism. So here you can see the note that Kevin Rafferty left, where he declared that it was the perfect project and the perfect team. And here we head across the way to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Just a beautiful early morning vista of the mountains and spires of Batuu. If we go in for a closer look, we'll be able to see just the amazing detail and care and ingenuity that was used to create these mountains.
And speaking of that beautiful themed finishes, of course, that leads us over to Disney's Animal Kingdom with this beautiful rendering of the Tree of Life, the icon for that park, done by Tom Gillian.
And of course, the Tree of Life is a beautiful sculpture in and of itself, clearly mixed media. But in a recent interview with Joe Rohde, he told me a story that I'd never heard before. As we were walking down towards the bottom of the tree through the roots, there's dead wood roots. And he explained that's the only place you will find extinct animals, the dinosaurs, so pterodactyls, Tyrannosaurus rex, or maybe even trilobites or triceratops. So it's down there in the dead wood all the way around the base of the tree.
And on the complete opposite end of extinct things, here we have the newest animal ambassador at Disney's Animal Kingdom. This is a black mountain tortoise, and it'll be appearing at Animal Kingdom soon, along with this painting. You see, when the Imagineering team needed to create new signage to go along with the new ambassador, they reached out to Imagineering artist Mccall Mural, because she had painted all of the original signage for Discovery Island. But that's not the only place you've seen Mccall's art around Animal Kingdom. You've held it in your hands as you've used a bird spotting guide, walking through the aviary in Africa. You've had her art bouncing over your head on Kilimanjaro safaris. She did all the spotting guides. It's been on the leaves that you see movie posters on in line for It's Tough to Be a Bug. And you have had her artwork extremely hard to miss on the 5,500 square feet of murals inside of Pizza Safari that she painted alongside her father, Frank Armitage. But one piece of hers that is small and much harder to find than Pizza Safari murals is this piece from Pandora World of Avatar. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but I'll just challenge you to find it next time you're waiting in line.
Well, and speaking of challenge, I challenge you with one final question. What's a piece of art that inspires you today? Mike?
So for me, I mentioned him earlier, I'm a big fan of Walt Paragoy's work. I find that his intricate use of shape and color and texture really inspires me as a photographer, right? If composition is the language of photography, then there are an endless number of ways that you can zoom in, crop, rotate, just to play with the varying compositions in the details that he left in his paintings.
And what do you think? There might be some more Mary Blair for Stacy?
This is my new favorite Mary Blair pieces, just because I didn't know they existed before, but she did some furniture designs for Walt Disney World back, this is dated 1967. They're not assigned to specific places, but you can see some of them would probably fit in at Fantasyland or also Adventureland. I particularly love the red flower in the middle there is listed as having a drop leaf table, which I'm sure is the punch I intended it to be. And then my absolute favorite is these two, which is the kitty bar, and then the ones on the right are labeled as the goat rack and couch. Again, lobbying to get ready to put it to merchandise.
How many legs are on the goat rack?
4.
Okay.
So, and while I'm going to end with another John DeCure, my heart really belongs to Herbie Ryman. And so, this is actually one of only 3 prints I have in my office at work, a huge reproduction of it. It's a really stunning work. His talent is exceptional. But the last inspirational piece that I have is this exquisite John DeCure of the stage backdrop at the Diamond Horseshoe Review. He did it in the style of Toulouse-Lautrec, and he left notes saying that he was inspired by a French etching of a Paris opera house where it was a mirror image of two theaters. So when you're seated in the Diamond Horseshoe, you look across the stage at another Diamond Horseshoe on the other side in a complete double theater.
Okay, no surprise. I love Herbie and Epcot. And so this wonderful piece that Herbie created to give us a sense of how magnificent Epcot would be is one of my favorites. I just love the tangerine sky and you know, Herbie, I always look for birds in Herbie's paintings, and I pretty much always find them. And then he also introduced a few people that we worked with. Randy Bright was in there. Yes, there, under the monorail. And then my final piece is one that Herbie created of Cinderella Castle. And this is the first piece of art that I ever possessed. It was given to each of the hostesses who worked the press conference in 1969, and it's really one I treasure.
Well, thank you very much for listening to a few of our stories. We hope that will be a source of